Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to our first event of the year. Beyond Pride Month, let's table it. My name is Smriti Makarmidha and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a practicing psychotherapist and co founder of Inclusion at Work, a vertical of Equilibrio Advisory LLP, a firm that provides legal remedies and psychological interventions for building equitable and safe spaces. Today's conversation came from the need to sustain our support for the LGBTQI community beyond Pride Month. In the past, we've had speakers from various industries speak about how organizations can be allies in commemoration of Ally Week. This time, we are entering 2023 with intention and gratitude. We have invited speakers from the mental health, finance, and movement spaces to aid us in understanding how we can make the most out of 2023 in meaningful and joyous ways. Our hope is that we center joy and peace this year. We want to not only look forward to systems, how do we really navigate these systems every day in service of creating joy, creating peace, and meaningful living. For today's Beyond Pride Month, let's table it conversation, we are joined by Jahan, Subrita, and Suyash. Thank you. I'll start with a brief introduction about all of you for the listeners to know who they are talking to and the expertise that you bring in today's conversation. So, Jahan Arora, pronouns are he and him, is an MBA by education, a celebrity makeup artist by profession, and a yoga trainer by passion. After completing his postgraduate education, he plunged into the corporate sector. However, he shifted gears to pursue hair and makeup artistry. In the past 8 years, he has been associated with various artists and celebrities and is a renowned bridal makeup artist. Amidst all these professional accolades, his inclination towards yoga and meditation remains constant. He will be our movement expert for today's talk. Suvrita, pronounced she and they, is a freelance psychologist and a trainer. As a therapist, they work with adolescents, individuals, families, relationships, and facilitate support groups. They're trained in comprehensive sexuality education and subsequently specialized in working with the queer community and does trainings on gender and sexuality. They also work in the development sector to develop and implement psychosocial interventions for vulnerable communities. Suvrita is today's mental health expert. Welcome, Suvrita. Suyash Tripathi, pronounced he and him, is the founder of Suyash Tripathi and Chartered Accountants. He has extensive experience in finance, having acted as a visiting professor at NMIMS KC College and HR College of Commerce and Economics. His top skills include internal audit, VAT, and auditing. When Suyash isn't crunching numbers, he likes to sing. Today, he is our finance expert. Welcome, Suyash. So, a very warm welcome to all three of you. We are very excited to have you here today, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I will just
Thank you so
start off
much,
this
Smriti.
conversation. Thank you, Johan. So, as we're just stepping into 23, also want to just do a check in here. How was last year for all of you?
Shall I start?
Please.
So 2022 was one year where I was clearing out all the things that I had started during the pandemic. Because in pandemic, we all were at home, and me being like a excited workaholic, I wanted to do so many things, and I was like, okay, let me start this, and I was doing a lot of things, and
Hmm.
started since 2020, and I had done some long courses, and the 2022 was the year where my schedule was getting a little lighter, and I was finishing enough things which I had packed myself with. So I would say yes, I have completed a lot of things and also settled a little more in my schedule.
Okay, so I'll go. Yeah. So basically, 2022, I don't look that as an isolation. So I would count 2020, 2021, and 2022 together, all 3 years. And I would say about my experience. And in fact, since I'm talking from a finance perspective, I would say that these 3 years, 2020 and 2021, 2 years were basically where we saw, and we saw pandemic, we got affected by it, our finances got affected, our mental health got affected, our families got affected by it. And 2022 was the year where we were coming out of it, from all these whatever that negative impact that we had in our life. And I would say that yes, uh, many new things I was able to learn in last 3 years about my business, about my communication with people, about how more sensitive I can be in my organization, and how can I ask my colleagues to be more sensitive towards the people around us. So yes, there were many learnings at the same point of time. There were more or more things that we got to know in these last 3 years. So yeah, this was my learning.
Thank you so much. Subrita?
So 2022 for me has been a really bad year, because of the most present thing for me has been a family health crisis. I really liked how you put it, Suyash, in terms of, clubbing, I think, these pandemic years together. It's so hard to think of them in isolation, because it's the context of 2021 that is defining 22, and even I think 23 for all of us now. Yeah, so and we in the house, for fun, we call it the personal pandemic that has been going on for us. So that's been the year, and I think I'm glad for this change in date, because I think it's just a change in the date, but I think it brings so much hope, um, for 23 to be different from this past few years.
Yeah. Mm. Thank you for sharing about your experience. And I think, like Suyash and Subrita pointed out, that we can't really look at 2022 in isolation. It has been deeply influenced and affected in terms of the experiences that we've had in the 2 years prior to that as well. All right, which has been a hard time for a lot of families, with health crisis coming in, people losing some of their family members as well, or even just loss of opportunity that may have happened, loss of experiences that have happened. And I think 2022 was that uh, coming out of the darkness, where there was some glimmer of hope that this is behind us as well. I think just the announcement of, okay, not having to wear masks was like a huge sense of relief, because I don't think we could even imagine having a life with not being able to wear mask and just see each other's faces as well, right? And that's just a very one aspect of it, but I think the impact was much much larger than that, right? Whether it comes to the financial resources, because people lost jobs, right? And it was a greater struggle for few communities and groups more than the others, right? Or even to access to mental health therapists itself, right? As a therapist myself, I realized that how there was such a deep sense of scarcity, where people were calling for appointments and mental professionals just didn't have time to go for that, or to go and approach a therapist, or to reach out for consultants, or for just kind of to have space for movement, right? To, if you're confined in a house, how do you even have spaces for movement as well? And just these basic routine tasks seem like a luxury in those moments. Yeah. And with that context as well, I would like to understand from you that what is it that now that you're happy to leave behind in 2022, and what is it that you are looking forward to in 2023? What's bringing in that sense of hope?
I think one positive thing which came out from the pandemic was that people started to learn how to do things online, which they never thought before.
Yeah.
So even me as a yoga person, I never thought that yoga could be taught online, because yoga has always been about, going to a class or people coming to me. And and I remember when the pandemic had started, I started Instagram Live for people, because I felt, people need this because they are at home getting depressed, lonely, they don't know what to do. But at least if they move, the bodies, at least their body could be healthy. And in yoga, we work a lot with immunity also. So I started Instagram Live, and the kind of response I got was amazing. And since then, I've actually shifted, after the pandemic was also over, I shifted my classes because I had clients from abroad. And so online thing is also working very good. That was one change that I experienced, was that I could reach out to more people. because the internet came handy. And I did complete becoming a yoga therapist in 2022. So, because I wanted to take yoga in a therapy form to treat different ailments for people. So, that was a new perspective of yoga towards people. And that has been also helping me a lot in uh, dealing with my clients or people with a new approach of yoga. So, yes, I think personally for me, I am able to help more people in 2022 going to 2023. Uh, yes, that has been one of my greatest, I would say, blessing in disguise because I know it was not a good time, but at the
Mm,
same time, I could reach out to more people.
mm,
Correct. So I
Also,
would,
I think because, sorry, let me
yeah,
just
John.
stop. Also because I feel people were forced to be inside, they also understood the importance of moving the body. That just sitting at home, because when we are working, we always feel like, oh, I want to rest, I don't want to do anything. But when they really did not have anything to do, they felt the importance of, okay, moving is important. So that gave them the sense of importance of, okay, let me also move myself. That is equally important than resting. Me as a movement expert, I also give importance to rest to people. I talk a lot about more about rest than actually moving, but both are equally important.
Yeah. So I would like to say that last these 3 years, or rather 2020, from 2020 or pre 2020, if I would say, I don't remember that mental health was a subject of importance, or anxiety was given that much importance. Post 2020, one positive impact, I would say that yes, definitely now people have realized that yes, anxiety needs to be addressed, depression needs to be addressed, mental health is a concept, is a topic, and is a very important topic that needs to be addressed in family, amongst the professional spaces. So that is the positive impact, I would say. And mental health, public health, I now I'm looking at these young kids now who are taking admissions, and institutes are coming up with courses on mental health and public health more. So that's the positive impact, I would say, that about the COVID that has given to us. uh, Again, work from home, I would say when we started a few years back, we were not able to get, so when we started, we were not having that luxury of taking a space on off taking a space and working. So like for us, it was like just work from home, take laptop, have a wi-fi, and start working from home. And because of that, we lost good contacts, good clients, just because of that we were not having an office. Today, right now, we say that yes, work from home is now what we can say, people who are working from home are equally capable of getting their deliverables on time. So that's the impact, I would say that has given. From my personal perspective, I would say that what Johan has said, that absolutely yes, online we are able to reach out to people. In our field as well, we are able to reach out to people more and more. Like now, sitting at Bombay, we can cater to clients who are at Bangalore or Chennai or maybe at Delhi, and they if they have issues related to their taxation, they are related to finance, they can reach out to us. We are able to talk about ourselves. We are able to like kind of able to educate people on the taxation and on the financial aspect. So that again, thanks to 2020 and COVID, that has given to us. What would I definitely like to leave behind is from a to become more disciplined. Sitting at home and relaxing is like kind of leading to more procrastination. So 2023 is the year where we like kind of become less procrastinate less and work more on our goals. So I think Johan would be able to help us on that.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely.
this makes me also think of like how like online space has made things so much more accessible for people. Like, I think even with therapy, I think a lot of people who are living abroad, for instance, want to come to Indian therapists because therapists abroad don't understand the context. Or if someone is in in most therapists, I think today are in tier one cities. So for anyone who is not in these cities, I think it's made access to these different resources so much more. And just generally, I think also like all the commute, uh, the very tiring commute um, that used to be there. Like if you have to, like I live in Bangalore, and if you tell me I have to go to the other part of the city to visit a therapist, I don't think one I'll ever reach on time. I'm not sure if a therapist can also reach on time. Um, so I think it's made things so much more accessible, and even for people with chronic illnesses, for example. I think to just be able to reach out to someone online um, saves so much time, so much energy. Um, and and personally for me, I think this year I'm just looking forward to having less number of days when I have to survive and make do with life, and more number of days where I can have fun and just like thrive.
Right. I think when all of you were sharing your experiences, I was reflecting in terms of how the last couple of years, the last 3 years, has been more about challenging the status quo. That, when there's a crisis, we cannot continue to work the way we have been working, right? We need to bring in this skill of being flexible, being adaptable, bringing maybe creative ways of working as well, right? And I think that's how we see that the best innovation happens through crisis, right? The fact that, to be able to even imagine that one can do yoga or movement on an online space is something that was never thought of, and that's true of so many industries as well, right? And just when you start looking at these possibilities, it also opens up so many more opportunities for people who have also been marginalized, right? Or who have other constraints as well. Say, for example, like Suvita mentioned, or someone who is having some bit of a chronic illness, right? It's difficult to commute. Or the fact that you may not have the financial resources to make that travel as well, or to be able to say, if you're in another geography, to be able to contact a therapist in the Indian setting who can understand the context better, right? And to also spotlight on the difficulties and struggles, say, of queer and trans folks as well, just to come out in the open and to access support can become so much more challenging, because it's not seen as a safe space. Even the commute is not safe, right? Or to be how they could be probably be perceived if they enter the mental health therapist office, right? So there are a lot of these struggles that the marginalized communities are experiencing a lot more. And I think with this innovation and adapting ways of working has made this also accessible for them in some spaces, right? And I would like to also bring in those struggles and ways of support in today's conversation, because that's not often spoken of, right? And when we do this as well, I think it's also very important to bring into this conversation your own individual philosophy as a person, as an expert in your respective areas, that you try to embody through your practice and your work. If you can shed some light on your philosophies.
Very well said, Smriti, when you said that a lot of communities don't get access to things like these. Also, one thing to add was that actually during the pandemic, I used to take these small workshops of breath and meditation workshops, 3-day workshops. And because of taking it online, we actually started doing queer special workshops because we wanted to provide safe spaces. Because we realized that when we do a combined program like a workshop, when we are told to share, they were still not comfortable sharing it because they don't know how the opposite person will react. Because it's a very interactive workshops and it deals with more of mental health things. And when we did it online, they were people from the LGBTQI community, which actually came from all across the country. and they were so happy that they could join and be a part of this. So it
Mm.
did give access, and I think creating these safe spaces are very important. I hope in future we don't need them, but at least now we need to create those spaces so that people can interact and learn things in a better, with a more free atmosphere, with a free environment.
Mm. Mm.
Uh, Continuing to the philosophies, I usually personally have three philosophies in my head, which I usually stick to. One is do not worry about what you cannot change. Because growing up, in my head, I used to always feel, why is this like this? Why people speak like this? Or why am I judged like this? But I realized that how many people can I change? How many opinions can I change? So this philosophy, since quite a few years, I've been like following that. Don't worry about things you cannot change. And second is, I feel life is usually a reflection of how we are within us. So instead of struggling to change everything around you, you can always change what's inside you because that's in your control. So even my work usually focuses on helping people to understand and learn how to change what's within you. How do you respond to it? And the last one I feel, which came in the past 2, 3 years when I was studying yoga therapy, was balance and moderation is the key to happiness. So not going to any extreme of one thing, just being in balance, being in moderation of everything. Yeah. So I've stopped doing like extreme diets or something. I'm like, okay, sometimes cheat day is fine. Satisfy your senses sometimes. It's okay. So I think these three have been helping me a lot in seeing things in a more broader perspective, and also not seeing life as a struggle, but seeing life as a lesson. Okay, what can I learn from this? What can I change within me? How do I overcome it? Yeah.
Very profound and lots to think about, Johan, there. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So I would like to say one thing that I have learned is I think this is also in Bhagavad Gita. I don't know the exact quote. I am not able to recollect the exact quote which is mentioned in Sanskrit. But one thing which is mentioned there is, this too shall pass. If something good happens to you, it will pass. If something bad happens to you, it will pass. If you receive a crore of rupees in your bank account, it will pass at one day. And if you face losses, it will pass. And one day you will also pass. So it's not so everything. What we have to remain constant is that our feelings has to remain same. If something good happens to us, stay calm, stay composed. If something bad happens to us, again, stay calm, stay composed. Don't overreact, and be thankful to the Almighty with whatever good or whatever is bad is happening in your life. So that is, I think, philosophy. I am. I like this philosophy, but yes, it is difficult to imbibe or inculcate in myself. So yeah, that's about me.
I
Thank
think
you. Yeah.
even yoga, actually there is a very famous definition of yoga in the Bhagavad Gita is samatvam yoga uchyate, means yoga means equanimity, not going to either too happy or too sad, just being in the center. So very beautiful, Suyash.
Thank you.
I really like how you both are also like, actually speaking about this in terms of philosophy. Because when I'm thinking about this question, I'm like, I sound so much like a therapist. Why can't I stay with the philosophy part of it? But um, yeah, and I think something that it's so hard to answer from a philosophy point of view. My mind automatically goes to the things that I've picked up in my practice that I implement to myself is so something that's very, very important to me is my own mental health. Um, Also, because if I am not doing well, I can't show up for the people that I'm working with. And there's a question that I often get asked whenever I tell people that I'm a therapist, that how do you manage your own self, because you're listening to people all day, and you're listening to some very difficult experiences, holding space for them. How do you take care of yourself? And I think that's become that taking care of myself has become a very, very central part of my practice and life. um, the little things I think I do every moment, every minute, check-ins I do with myself, that okay, I have this time, how do I want to use it? That it takes care of me, that it helps me move more and more towards the center. I think that John, you were speaking about, so that I'm able to take care of myself. And I do a bunch of things for that. Like I figured that okay, um, I don't work on weekends. I don't work till late on weekdays, because if I do, then I can't sleep. Um, or I think just finding times where I'm not doing anything mental health related, finding other things to do, is something that's I've found to be very important, to be able to like take care of myself, and do better at my work subsequently. So that's what I meant when I said I'm not able to think of philosophies. I'm thinking like a therapist.
There is a philosophy behind whatever you're saying, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. And I think a very powerful one as well, which often I think gets dismissed or also looked down upon, right? In terms of taking care of yourself. If you look at the narrative around putting yourself out there first over anything else, is the ideas that am I being too selfish? And that
Yeah.
brings in a sense of guilt and shame. And to even to, I mean, let alone articulate it, we don't even allow ourselves to think about it, right? And
Yeah.
for you to be able to practice that every single day, Suvrita, is a reflection of being a philosophy, because philosophy is what also governs and influences our existence and the different roles that we carry out as well. Uh, so thank you for sharing this. I think because what you're saying is well, I think there is so much emphasis also on productivity that we shy away from drawing those boundaries and say, you know what, hey, I'm not going to be working beyond 7 o'clock, or I'm not going to be working on weekends. I can't always be available for other people as well. And not because I'm not a good therapist or the fact or not an accessible therapist, but I need to take a step back to be able to show up the next day and be as effective and as efficient as well. So I think drawing those boundaries is very, very important. And saying no to things is very, very important to be able to do good and effective work, right? And so thank you for sharing this, that how important self-care is, and just not for therapists, because who are listening and holding space for other people, but regardless of the profession one is into, or even not working as well, it's perfectly okay. Even as a student, they need to draw boundaries. As someone who is perhaps not in a job which is maybe remuneration based as well, right? All of them, for in our life, we need to know how do we assert those boundaries to be able to uh, give that respect to ourselves and to the relationships that we hold and the work that we do. And which also brings in what Siraj was talking about, that this also makes possible to hold that ground and to invite that calmness and composure as well. Because if we do anything, we overdo of anything, it we are going to be let the calmness is going to be very elusive in those situations, right? And I think which also was echoed by Johan as well, that balance and moderation is the key. And both of you brought in Gita, and I think just in terms of historically speaking as well, these are the principles that have been spoken of in different ways for us. Uh, and I think just talking about, I think what's under control, right? And I think we do not have control over what people have to say. They have to think, and the environment around us, like how we were discussing in terms of the impact of pandemic, that was not beyond our control. But the choices we made during that period was under our control, right? The fact that okay, I can't work in an offline space, let's make it online, right? So, and this was a choice that we made in that situation as well, that brought in this resilience, that brought us to move forward and not to feel that we're succumbing to that pressure and to those factors that are beyond our control. You know, And while we talk about these philosophies and how you've been able to bring that into your work as well, I want to go back to Jahan because you did talk about how you created a safe space for the queer folks. Uh, and I was also wondering that often, in my practice also, when we're talking about queer and trans folks, it, talks about mental health, about, just in terms of how the people are viewing queer and trans folks, their experience of marginalizations, uh, the the corrective measures that are being taken care of as well. You know, seldom we hear about the need for movement, right? It does not come up in the conversation, even in the mental health context also as much, right? So creating this space for queer folks and to make movement accessible for them, uh, what has been your experience? Do you think this conversation has always happened in your circle, or do you think this was something which was different that was happening? Because again, we look at from cis heteronormativity as well, it's usually a space that is accessible for cishet folks, right? We don't talk about queer folks and trans folks having that access to movement. uh, if you can bring in about your experiences, the challenges, and how you have also circumvented those. uh,
So I see this thing a little differently. Firstly, we have to understand that it is not that, many times we make anxiety, depression, loneliness coming out as a very queer specific problem, but it is not. Everyone goes through it, doesn't matter. But the thing is, there are layers to it, and as queer, we go on a deeper layers to it. We are struggling with a basic thing like identity or knowing yourself. So it's a deeper layer, but it doesn't exist everywhere. It does exist. At the same time, the thing is, because when you grow up as a queer individual in a society where uh, it's maybe a taboo, so you isolate yourself so much that you don't know where to go, but you are struggling through something, and because you don't know who to talk to, forget about other people. You are not accepting yourself, firstly, the way you are. Uh, it's so difficult to know pathways to get out. You don't know what's going on with you. So that's why, usually, like, because I deal with a lot of youth, and usually the only way they know is, okay, go to a party or get into drugs or get into alcoholism or something, which takes the mind off for with this struggle for some time. So it is very important that they understand and they are at least have an awareness that there are different ways to go through it. Also, I feel there are very few queer-friendly therapists or psychologists or psychiatrists because I have friends who have been, whose parents have taken them to doctors and they're like, we'll treat you. So uh, knowing that, I think from my experience, just the kind of the yoga I teach and the therapy I do is usually it is very self-empowering because it's your body. You're using your own body to know your own body and know your own mental health and dealing with your mental health and emotions. See, the movement space, we are moving the body, but we are not only working on the body. We are working on the mind, we are working on the emotions. And because, if we understand trauma is a very wide subject. We understand trauma when trauma is held inside, it is held in some part of the body eventually. So when you're moving the body, we are also moving that energy which is stuck. So uh, movement is not, it is physical from the outside, but it's also working on different layers. So movement is so important. Even scientifically, we know that, if you exercise or move your body, you release endorphins and happy hormones and stuff like that. So alcohol will give you dopamine, but doing yoga can also release the same hormone, but in a healthy quantity. And actually, I have examples of people coming out of addiction just by doing yoga and without me telling them that you need to leave drinking or I'm like, you do your whatever you're doing, but just do yoga every day or consistently. And within 2, 3 months, they're like, oh, I don't feel like drinking or I don't feel like doing drugs. It's just that the mind needs dopamine because it's a very good thing to have for the brain. But if it knows an alternative, a healthy alternative for that, then it will automatically go towards it. It will stop it. So I think in that way, people having the awareness of how movement can help them and how important it is and how also easy it is. It's accessible. You are where your body is. You can just do it anywhere. You don't need to go to somewhere else or pay some extra money. If once you learn it, you just do it by your own wherever you are.
Thank you, John, for spotlighting this because I think the larger narrative about yoga is about physical fitness, right? Because you talk about those asanas and flexibility, I think very little is spoken of in terms of its the mental health implications as well, right? How it can really support people when they are experiencing intense emotions as well of distress, anxiety, stress, and which is a common experience, and but I think a lot more that is experienced by queer and trans folks also, right? Because of a greater degree of isolation. Isolation just not from the society, but also sometimes isolation within itself, right? To be able to disconnect that experience with their own bodies. And to be able to bring that into sync can become a possibility as well. And in saying, I'm not saying in terms of corrective action, in just in terms of to be able to navigate those emotions as well through
Yes.
movement. Because, like you rightly said, that any kind of movement would have an impact on your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It will reduce
Yes.
the cortisol. There will be release of those
Mm.
endorphins, like you were rightly pointing out, uh, making a strong case for how it supports the mental health of the people who engage with yoga, right? And I think something that you've also really spotlighted that people may not be aware of, that how trauma also resides in the body,
Mm.
right? And for different people, it could be different body parts as well, right? And which could be a very unique experience for each person. And to be able to work with through trauma with movement is also one way of intervention, right? So thank you for
Yes.
bringing that in.
One effect of trauma is disassociation.
Yeah.
You stop associating yourself from that body part or wherever the trauma is to, or
Mm,
even your own body or your own existence. So when you do movement practices is nothing but we make you more aware of your own body, continuously getting aware, so you're more grounded.
yeah.
Anxiety is nothing but you're just all over. And grounding is you just get everything back together in your own body, focus on your body. And movement, when we say movement, it's not only movement of the body, it's movement of the breath also. Your breath changes with every emotion. When you're angry, your breath is different. When you're sad, your breath is different. When you're happy, you're so if you learn how to use your breath or change your breath, you can actually change the emotion. It works the other way around also.
Mm, mm,
So, and yoga is the definition of yoga is union of mind and body. So mind is always has been there. So
yeah.
making it as a physical thing is more of a westernized yoga. But traditionally and authentically, if you see, yoga is actually more about the mind than the body.
True.
But using the body to deal with the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, if I can also bring a Subrata into the conversation right now, since we're talking about yoga and its implication on mental health, Subrata, if you would like to share some of the insights on this.
Um, I think um, I think there's a lot of evidence to back all of this up, of to explain how exactly this works. And I think so, particularly for queer and trans folks who are dealing with a lot of challenges as a result of their identity, as a result of systems which are working against us. Um, One of the impacts that this often has is the theory of the idea of that we all have a window of tolerance. It's a window within which we're able to bring ourselves back and tolerate stressors. Uh, but the more number of stressors that queer and trans folks experience, um, the the more the window shrinks for them. And movement and yoga based therapies is something which is a very powerful as well as accessible tool in the Indian context, which can increase your window of tolerance. And especially when there are going to be continuous adverse experiences, these are not stopping. These aren't one time events that once happened, but these are events that are happening now and we know are going to happen in the next few years, next few decades as well. So engaging in these practices is something that can be very supportive in coping with what's happening around us. And for me personally, I found movement based, somatic based interventions at a time where I was really frustrated with the more cognitive based interventions. And I'm not sure that with a couple of people, I was seeing that things are just not moving forward. We are stuck in those same places, same difficulties. And a couple of peers of mine guided me towards more somatic practices, towards breath work, towards body work. And I found it to be very useful that, when the mind is not finding it possible by itself to be able to move in a different direction, I found movement is very powerful. It's one thing that can help to move things away in a new, more sort of wholesome, fulfilling direction. And the idea being that our mind and body is connected. If we are able to regulate our body, our mind automatically is able to think different, right? We don't realize this, but even when we are trying to shift our minds, when we successfully do that, our body's experience does also shift. So I think what Johan said, right, that what we're basically then doing, we're trying to bring attention to what's happening within the body. These things are already happening, it's just that we are not aware about them. So the more awareness we're able to build, the more we're able to use these as a tool. um, and also with I think there's a um, lot of accessibility to these things now. So for instance, there's a whole bunch of apps now which will give you meditation, yoga based simple things that you can start doing by yourself. um, or the YouTube is filled with guided meditations, just like calming sounds, breathe bubbles that you can just open and anyone can access these. So I think they're also very, very accessible, especially in the Indian context where this is a place where these yoga traditions, meditation traditions started. If you want to learn meditation in India, there are hundreds of places and organizations where you can go to and learn about these. So, in a context where we have very few mental health professionals, we have even fewer mental health professionals who are trained or work on themselves to be able to support queer folks. There's a whole bunch of these techniques which are much more available, much more accessible. Um, yeah.
Right. So, well, thank you for spotlighting this as well, because the whole idea is how do we make support more accessible for queer and trans folks, because we do understand one of the part of the experience also about financial difficulties that they experience, right? Of not getting enough job opportunities and kind of incentives at work as well because of their identities itself, right? And how that also comes in the way of the experience of discrimination, exclusion. And I would like to bring Swash into that conversation as well. But before I do that, are there any apps that you would like perhaps suggest to our listeners, which you have uh, know from your experience of your clients working with it, or something that people have shared with you? And because then there's so many, there are plethora of apps available right now. There's so many YouTube channels that have started right now. But there's something that if you can build in credibility by giving some recommendations.
I
Or
know of
Johan,
one
maybe.
app, Satwa is a very good app. It has a lot of guided meditations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is one app I use sometimes. Uh, but yes, for me personally, apps and YouTube is good to begin with, but I would not say to stick to it because a YouTube person will not come and correct you if you're doing it wrong.
True.
And if you do it wrong, it can actually have the adverse effects. So it's good to begin with, but yeah, there are a lot of YouTube channels which are uh, specific to yoga, also specific to mental health. I would not recommend something specific, but please go and understand and educate yourself because the knowledge is very good there.
Right.
Uh, but app, Satwa is a good app. I've not used personally other apps because I make my own thing. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And thank you for sharing this as well. Right? So the idea would be to just experience what it's going to look like if we were to just have that calming music playing, right? It may not guide you in terms of how you do your breath work, which is very, very important. And then to work with a professional is going to be very important. I think your Insta lives will come very handy there as well. And again, making things accessible because that's the whole
yeah,
idea that because firstly, we do not know many queer friendly and queer affirmative therapists out there.
mm,
And the second challenge does become about financial constraints that come in. And people also do not continue with the whole process because it's not affordable. Uh,
yeah,
right now we have the insurance has come in, right, which was never spoken of earlier, that how you could get mental health insurance, right? And that's what I want to bring in Suyash into this conversation as well, because as we talk about these hurdles and these challenges that especially queer and trans folks are experiencing, or anyone who want to access mental health support as well, right, this becomes a hurdle. One is obviously the stigmatization of it, even though we have come a long way with the last 3 years and there's more acceptance. But the second is also the financial constraints that people experience. So, Suyash, if you can bring in your view in terms of the insurance, other schemes that are available, or any other advice that you may have to make these resources more accessible for people, or anything that people may not be aware of.
Okay. So basically, what happens amongst the trans folks is that, again, they are not much aware about these schemes, or they are not much aware of what are the, what we can say, on the financial literacy as a topic is very neglected when it comes to what we can say amongst the LGBTQI folks, or in the cis hetero society as well. Okay, so I would first say that once you start earning, is that where you have to realize that you need to save yourself. Okay, amongst this is not particular to trans folks. This is particular to the entire queer community. What one thing that we have in our mind is that, okay, chalo, today I am earning 30,000 rupees or a 40K or whatever amount in a month. Okay, today I have to, this is my life, this is my day, I have to spend, I don't have to save, I don't have to invest. And this is the problem that we usually see amongst the queer community, because why don't I have to say invest? Because I'm not going to have I won't have children, I won't have family, there is no need to save, there is no need to have money, so why should I do that? But they don't think from this perspective. What if you stop earning for 3 months, or what if you stop earning for 6 months? Okay, who is going to come and feed us? That's awareness is what is not happening amongst the queer community, and that we are that my organization tries and like goes out and promote and talks about this amongst the community members. When we go and talk about, okay, tomorrow if you want to go and get a loan of, let's say, a 5 lakh rupees or a 3 lakh rupees or a personal loan as well, basic documentations is, okay, your PAN card, your Aadhaar card is in your dead name, absolutely fine. You also need to get your tax returns filed. Okay, every year we are almost filing free income tax returns for 55 transgender community people. We are associated with a trans organization which is based out of Bombay, and through them we are able to help 55 trans individuals so that they have a proper documentation. Even if they don't require loan today, tomorrow even if they go to a bank agar unko पूछता है, so that they are able to submit these documents on time. So first of all, I would say that awareness, or rather acceptance, is a biggest challenge. I would say कि मैं क्यों save करूं, मैं क्यों invest करूं, is a biggest challenge. मैं इंश्योरेंस क्यों लूं, मुझे जरूरत नहीं है इंश्योरेंस लेने की. thanks to the government, thanks to IRDA, that they have come out again. Organization has come up with a insurance policy that is specifically for the queer folks. So again, जब किसी ने start किया है, तो now more and more organizations would come up and what we can say, accept. So yeah, again, I would say the acceptance is first thing. From apart from a government scheme perspective, that I would like to because government has various schemes for the entrepreneurs, for startups, people who are coming up and starting their own organization. Okay, they have schemes for women, they have schemes for people who are from SC, ST, and OBC background. Yet schemes are not have come out specifically for transgender youth. If it happens, I would be, then it would be really helpful for the trans community, or people who want to establish their own business or their own setup as such. So yeah, I would definitely, from a finance perspective, they need to be literate, they need to be accepted, and they have to understand that yes, this is an important thing, this is also an important thing. Apart from fighting for an identity, apart from fighting for your rights, understanding that yes, you have to also be financially literate, financially independent, safe, invest, so that tomorrow, in future, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, at your 60s or 70s, you don't have to see anyone. You're not financially dependent on anyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I think, like you rightly said, that it starts with awareness, right? To be financial, bring in financial literacy into the conversation itself, right? And the basic principles of saving is whether or not one needs it or not. I think it's very important to start having those conversations around it as well. And just do your paperwork, right? Because then it would support one if they would need a loan or subsequently, if not in the current times, right? But we also see that there is a challenge because when it comes to documentation, like you said, you would need your PAN card, Aadhaar card. It could be in someone's dead name as well. And the whole process can be a little cumbersome, right? And how do you then navigate those systems? Are there some banks or schemes that are queer friendly, which recognizes this challenge and still support them? Or to say, even open joint bank accounts for same sex relationships or same sex couples, right? So, anything on those that you would like to shed
Okay, so
light?
see, when it comes to what we can say, legal documentation, obviously I would not have documents with my preferred name, because
Mm.
what it happens that since they are a regulatory organization, there are regulatory organizations who are governing them. So for them, obviously, अगर document, अगर मैं सुयश त्रिपाठी हूँ, तो मेरे document में भी सुयश त्रिपाठी ही दिखना चाहिए, not any other name. So that challenge will always be there till the time government comes up, or now transgender cards has been introduced, but yet banks are not what we can say, accepting that as acceptable documents for sanctioning loans. That's still in process, that's still in talks, but yes, few years down the line, it may be also what we can say, be there in one of their document checklist, that yes, you are a transgender and this is your preferred name, and all your documentations will be on this preferred name and not on your dead name. So that is in talks. Axis Bank is one which is more queer friendly. What we can say in terms of, like, if you visit there, their team, their staff is very queer friendly. So I can say about Axis Bank. I cannot say about other organizations, because see how banks work is that there are different branches with different set of individuals, though their culture is same. But again, बैंकिंग में एक ये प्रॉब्लम है कि हर एक ब्रांच का एक अपना अपना थॉट है, एक अपना अपना वर्किंग का स्टाइल है. ओके, सो that's why even if a Kotak Mahindra branch which is located near my house is working fine, their team is very talented, maybe it would not be same with the other branch which is near your house or near your office or whatever. Okay, so yeah, banking, if you will say, if you want to like kind of give a first preference to Axis Bank if you want to like kind of associate with any particular organization. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you, Surash, for sharing this. And so, if I can also bring you back into the conversation, because this entire process can be very, very emotionally demanding, and also bring the sense of alienation and not feel like you belong, that you're part of the society, right? And how It's a much more bigger struggle to be able to get things done. And I'm wondering, and with not having enough queer friendly, queer affirmative therapists as well to be able to recognize these challenges, what has been your experience of working with clients and your peers as well of navigating through these challenges that the society and systems bring in that experience of oppression for the folks?
Um, I think I'll start with the sort of philosophy. I think Johan said earlier that don't worry about things you can't change. And if we keep focusing on these systems, so it's true these systems are working against queer folks, and they're posing a lot of challenges, a lot of hurdles that are leading to mental health difficulties. But if we keep focusing on the oppression, on the systemic issues, um, where change is also slow, it's only going to lead to more and more of a sense of powerlessness, of helplessness, of defeat. I think what we need to also do is start focusing on things that combat these experiences, to focus on what you all were also speaking about earlier, on things which are within our control as well. Right? It's true that in the larger society there is a sense of not belonging, but can we create smaller circles around our immediate selves where we feel a sense of belonging? Can we surround ourselves with people, at least in our personal lives, where we feel loved, where we feel cared for, where our queerness is just normalized? It's um, not a problem. It's not something to focus too much on also, right? Because that's what society does, that's what all the oppression does. It makes this one identity so salient, whereas it's actually just one identity amongst many other identities that people hold. um, and I think someone had also asked this question in the comments. I saw that, how do we navigate burnout in a world that is invested in erasing our existence? I think queer people have already been doing that for a long, long time. Communities that have formed are one such way in which people have been combating that. Um, there's there's a whole bunch of things I think people can also do on a daily basis. Like, I think taking care of ourselves. There are going to be a lot of spaces, a lot of experiences which are going to deplete you. Like, if you're going for documentation change, it's going to be exhausting. It's going to be dramatic. Very often, it's going to be frustrating. Um, but when you come back home, can there be some space, some time to do things that are also more replenishing? Can there be a conscious choice at that moment to choose activities, to choose things, to choose surrounding yourself with people which are more replenishing, so that your energy is not being depleted further? So I think finding these things that we can do in our everyday lives, so that we're not crumbling under the defeat, under the oppression that's around us.
And I think it's about, so whether it's changing the focus, right? Like you said that the queer and trans identity is one aspect of the identity. It's not the only identity as well, right? And yes, we need to acknowledge the struggles and challenges, but we also need to look at in terms of what empower us. Whether it's through, and it could be just through the little things that we do on day-to-day basis, or the circles of support that we have built around us as well. And I think the community really comes together to support each other, right? Or we have chosen families who support us as well, to us who see us and hear us, right? And this becomes very, very important to recognize as well, and to hold on to those feelings of acceptance, even just with our own selves at that point in time, or bringing that movement in, or to knowing that that we are moving in the right direction. It's slow, but it's still movement is there, and just to hold on to those aspects. Yeah. I see I have only 30 seconds remaining to end this discussion. I wish we had more time. But if I just had to look at bringing back you in, what are some of the meaningful habits that each one of us can cultivate in 2023 for making it a peaceful and joyous year, the intent that we started with. If each one of you can come in and give us one meaningful habit that each one of us can cultivate or hone.
One habit I would like everyone to inculcate is take out at least 30 minutes, at least. You can have more, just to be with your body, be with yourself, be with your breath, and do anything that makes you relate to your own body more, makes you relate to your own breath more. Only 30 minutes of this can actually bring a lot of difference. Like, it's not that you meditate for the whole day, you will have more benefit. Actually, scientifically, meditating only for 20 minutes is actually good enough for the whole day. So, this much time for yourself is important and give it that importance. Make it a priority.
So I would say I have multiple habits, and I'll surely wrap up in 30 seconds. Plan your budget, plan your finances, and make a budget properly. Okay, see where are your expenses are going, and analyze your expenses. See that if there is any wastages happening or no. Start investing. The earlier you invest, the earlier you start investing, and the better it is going to be in the long run. Okay, have an insurance. It's a must. Okay, uh, take it. Have a medical insurance for sure. Okay, so that in the longer period, it is again. We are able to save ourselves. And yes, plan for retirement. So these are the things that I would definitely say: plan your expenses through your budget, start investment, have an insurance, and plan for retirement. Yes.
Mhm. I'm going to go on a slightly different direction with this because I'm working with people where I see people having challenges in following habits, challenges in following habits the role you want to. So I'd say that be realistic with whatever habit you want to follow. Also, basis the life situation you might be in. There might be a lot of times where there are 10 things you want to do that are not happening. That sometimes it's just the things that are happening in life just don't allow them to also happen at times. But to also focus on what can happen right now and work towards that much at least. Um, yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think my the top takeaways then would be to just breathe, right? Breathe mindfully, and be realistic about it. Yes, and plan your budget, plan your savings, and do invest in that insurance, right? So on that note, continue to invest in yourself. I think for all the listeners out there, and thank you very much for investing your time into this conversation and bringing such valuable insights for all of our listeners. And personally, I am taking away so much from this conversation. And I really hope we can continue having more of such conversations and create joyous and meaningful living for each one of us. Right. So thank you very much and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much. Have a great day. Thank you.